Ever walked into a room and instantly knew trouble had arrived? That was Mad Dog Vachon in every arena he stepped into. From Quebec, Canada, this man didn't just wrestle, he terrorized. Opponents weren't just beaten, they were humiliated, bruised, and occasionally terrified in ways promoters still whisper about. Mad Dog made chaos an art form. He brawled with legends, left locker rooms looking like war zones, and feuds followed him like a cloud of smoke after a dumpster fire. One night, you were prepping for a match. Next night, you were explaining to your boss why your face was swollen. He did it all with that wild grin, the kind that said, "I know exactly how much pain I'm causing, and I love it." This isn't about belts or applause. It's about feuds, destruction, and the reputation that made arenas freeze when the Mad Dog walked in. If you thought wrestling was just moves and titles, think again. Strap in. This is the real history of Mad Dog Vachon. Mad Dog Vachon didn't stumble into wrestling. He blasted through it. Before the ring, he was an amateur standout with Olympic aspirations in mind, but the squared circle called louder than medals ever could. In Quebec, he cut his teeth in local promotions, earning a reputation for being unpredictable, violent, and impossible to negotiate with. His first major feud set the tone for a career built on fear. Early clashes with Butcher Vachon, his own brother, were legendary for their intensity. Promoters didn't have to hype the fights. The audience already knew something could explode at any moment. Outside Quebec, Mad Dog expanded his chaos to the US, challenging Pat Patterson and Johnny Valentine. With Patterson, every hold felt like a threat. With Valentine, he mixed pure brawling with psychological torment. Opponents didn't just wrestle him, they survived him. Mad Dog's style wasn't just brute force. He perfected the growl, the stare, the sudden snap, making people freeze before the bell even rang. His antics backstage were almost as famous as his matches, throwing chairs, intimidating younger wrestlers, and leaving bruised locker rooms. He quickly became the type of name that made promoters rub their temples and fans cheer like lunatics. By the late 1950s, Mad Dog was a rising terror in the North American scene. Feuds were no longer just matches. They were spectacles of pain, chaos, and unpredictability. Every brawl, every stare down, every throw of a chair built the legend that would terrorize arenas for decades. Mad Dog wasn't just wrestling, he was announcing that he owned every ring he stepped into. By the mid-1960s, Mad Dog was no longer just a rising threat. He was a headline-making nightmare in the AWA. Every promoter knew booking him meant fire, fury, and ticket sales. Opponents didn't just step into the ring, they entered a storm they might not survive intact. Mad Dog's biggest feuds were legendary. Vern Gagne, the AWA cornerstone, faced Mad Dog multiple times. These weren't just matches, they were wars. Mad Dog's brutal brawling style clashed with Gagne's technical precision, leaving arenas buzzing with shock and awe. Every headlock and clothesline carried a warning. This wasn't a friendly dance. He also had notable matches against Killer Kowalski, a skilled technical wrestler. Mad Dog applied sustained pressure and aggressive attacks, forcing Kowalski to remain constantly defensive throughout their encounters. And then there was Crusher Lasowski, two men capable of breaking each other and often did. Audiences watched expecting chaos, and Mad Dog delivered in spades. Even tag matches weren't safe. Pairings with his brother Butcher Vachon brought double the destruction. Promoters learned quickly, never leave anything fragile in the ring when the Vachons were involved. Chairs flew, faces bruised, rings shook. Backstage, stories were just as vicious. Young wrestlers learned quickly. Mad Dog didn't separate character from reality. He growled, snapped, and intimidated, like it was his job, because it was. And in every Midwest arena, fans and wrestlers alike knew the Mad Dog wasn't just performing. He was a force of nature they couldn't control. By the end of his AWA prime, Mad Dog Vachon had carved out a reputation as one of wrestling's most feared brawlers. Every feud, every rampage, every stare down added to a legacy that promoters, wrestlers, and fans would never forget. By the late 1970s, Mad Dog Vachon had cemented his reputation as a brawler nobody wanted to face. He wasn't just dangerous solo. In the AWA, he also teamed with Vern Gagne in several tag matches. Fans knew every match would be physical, and promoters knew it would draw attention. Mad Dog also maintained a constant presence in the Midwest U.S. territories, feuding with regional stars. The intensity didn't change across arenas. Whether in Minneapolis or smaller towns in Iowa and Nebraska, Mad Dog brought the same level of force and unpredictability. Tag matches gave Mad Dog a chance to wreak havoc in new ways. Pairing with Vern meant double the intensity. Together they fought teams like Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens, who learned quickly that facing these two men was like walking into a hurricane. Chairs, tables, and fists flew. Matches often spilled right out of the ring and into the crowd, turning arenas into battlefield zones. Backstage, Mad Dog continued to intimidate younger wrestlers and keep locker rooms on edge. Promoters loved the heat. Wrestlers feared the growl. The Mad Dog wasn't just a wrestler, he was an experience that left bruises on your body and your reputation. By the early 1980s, Mad Dog's legacy was clear. He had become a master of chaos in both singles and tag team competition. His feuds, his rampages, and his unmatched intensity made him one of wrestling's most feared and unforgettable figures. In the early 1980s, Mad Dog Vachon joined the World Wrestling Federation. He competed in matches across the promotion, appearing in televised events and house shows. His WWF tenure was relatively brief. He wrestled a variety of opponents, but specific match cards and results are limited in publicly available records. Vachon retired from active competition by the mid-1980s. After retiring, he made occasional appearances for the WWF events and television programs. During his final years in wrestling, he was recognized as a legendary figure, noted for his brawling style and influence on the next generation of wrestlers. When Mad Dog Vachon finally stepped away from the ring, he didn't fade into silence. He just stopped taking bookings. Retirement didn't calm him, it just gave him new audiences to scare. Fans who met him at conventions said he was kind, but the growl was still there. You never quite relaxed around him, and that's exactly how he liked it. He settled in Omaha, Nebraska, staying connected to the wrestling world without being swallowed by it. His life after wrestling wasn't easy. In 1987, he lost part of his leg after being hit by a car, but even that couldn't tame him. When asked about it years later, he shrugged it off, saying he was still Mad Dog, just with one less leg to stand on. That's not self-pity, it's vintage Mad Dog humor. He later made memorable TV appearances, including one at In Your House, Bad Blood, where his prosthetic leg was famously pulled off during a chaotic brawl. It was the kind of darkly comic madness that summed up his whole career. Brutal, shocking, and unforgettable. He was sitting ringside when the chaos broke loose. Diesel ended up grabbing Mad Dog Vachon's prosthetic leg. The crowd gasped, cameras captured the shocking moment, and Mad Dog stayed composed. It was a worked segment. Staged for drama, but still wild and unpredictable. Even with his leg removed, Mad Dog sold the mayhem like the legend he was. This moment perfectly showed why his presence, in the ring or at ringside, always demanded attention. Mad Dog Vachon, real name Maurice Vachon, passed away on November 21st, 2013, at the age of 84. He died peacefully at home in Omaha, Nebraska, surrounded by family. After decades of battling injuries, including the loss of his leg and the wear of a brutal wrestling life, his health had declined in his final years. The wrestling world mourned the loss of a man who defined toughness and authenticity. Promoters, old rivals, and fans alike spoke about him not just as a legend, but as one of the last real wild men of wrestling. He didn't pass away in the ring, but he left behind a legacy built on raw emotion, chaos, and pure grit. Even in death, the Mad Dog's growl still echoed through every story told about him. He didn't just wrestle. He embodied everything that made the golden era of wrestling feel real. And even after death, fans still remember that guttural growl echoing through the halls of wrestling history. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment about your favorite Mad Dog moment. The man was chaos personified, and his story deserves to keep being told. Loud, wild, and unapologetic, just the way he lived. Thanks for watching.